the cloud, as we have actually began a new sefer, a new scroll. We're on the scroll Numbers, the book of Numbers, BeMidbar. In the wilderness is one of the renderings, and begin to rule or to be in order is another rendering of the name Midbar, as it comes from a root word meaning to order, mo. So, as we encounter this book, we encounter Moshe giving a census. My question to open this particular discussion is, what is the purpose, particularly of ancient times, of undergoing a census? And what principles can you extract from that? When you're undergoing a census, well, first, what is a census? Okay, you're getting a head count, right? You're getting a head count of everyone. What are they extracting from? What are they looking to extract from this particular head count? For war, right? They're looking for capable men. They're looking for men 20 years and above, right? Going out to the army in Israel. Okay. So what is the purpose of doing this? What are they securing? Keep in mind, Israel has come with the women, the children, the elderly, right? The nation. Right. Well, actually, they really led the perspective. They're the ones who had the truck, they had the arm. They were in the mix. They were like a part of the job. Say that again. Shabbat shalom, Akol Tasila.
Shabbat shalom.
So again, the purpose of this is to take inventory. You're taking national inventory. You're seeing who is who and what is what. That's enough. Put them up. You're seeing who is who and what is what in the nation. And nothing fun right now. This is exactly what we just talked about. I got one more chance. Next one, you're gonna go see your mom. And with this inventory, you're able to really establish how important is that the kingdom. And these are things that we gotta really wrestle and recognize. Right? These are things that we have to understand in terms of roles in the kingdom. This is every man, right? Every man has a responsibility. And I'm speaking gender-wise, okay? Every male, this is every male of Israel, head by head, has the responsibility of being a buckler for the kingdom, for the nation, right? Every tribe, every man, there is no exceptions. There's no excuses. There's no exemptions. There's no, well, I will say that there probably are. We know that we even have that when people get married. We have that if people are scared, right? Keep that at home. So there are instances when this is not actually applied, right? But for those who it did apply to, you had over 603,000 individuals that were willing to lay it all out for the nation. For Yah, for nation, right? For Yah, for nation, for country. For people, for Yah, people, and country. Right? So this is what we understand is the call here. Now, what we're seeing in this arrangement is so powerful, right? But all these names here, all these names have meaning. We've talked about this. Son of the right, Elisur, my rock, El is my rock, right? Shady Ur, I forgot what Shady, but this is like the breasted one, the nourishing one, the light of the nourisher. Shimon, Yah, his herd. Shalumiel, the peace of El. Sori Shaddai, right? My rock is my power. My rock is all powerful. The praiser of Yah. Nachshon is a very interesting name. This is also shares the same root with the word Nachash. Nachash is the word for serpent in Israel. This is almost like an enchantment. Very interesting. I mean, Nadab, my father is, or my people are, I forgot what Nadab means, but all of these names are significant and even deeper in telling the story. So when we would take all these names and we run it down before, I don't have to list it down, but we've run all these names down and it tells a story. It reveals a meaning that is essential to understanding the purpose of this formation and this responsibility of these men. Okay, any thoughts, comments, questions?
I was just thinking really about the order.
Good.
Being able to, another thing you got me to thinking, and maybe we all go through that, just being able to declare, where it says in verse 18, they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers. You know, I mean, that connection there.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And just knowing, I think it's, it's a stumbling, like who has whose children, you know what I'm saying? Even right now with our own families, a lot of times we don't know the names. We're not able to, if something happened, could you really declare your family? Right. That's due to our circumstance, but still.
Yes, ma'am. Exactly. And this is deep for us coming out of captivity because they're broken. Our line is so broken. You can tell what clan we're from. A clan, not just speaking of tribes, right? We can't even tell what house are we from. We can say Yehuda had a pretty big house. Now show the head of the house of Yehuda. So that's how detailed this gets. And this lets us know how detailed Yah is in his order. Yah is very specific. And this is where it gets so deep because I will say this is where and they took the time in oral tradition. This is why the oral tradition, I would argue, is so important because you can have an overarching principle that has so many different interpretations and applications, right? What our ancestors did in their Jewish was capture it in an oral tradition to really eliminate the further conjecture. We're going to keep this like very contextual. We're not going to allow this to go any kind of way. We're going to really give you the parameters of this concept, right? The borders and the bounds and the orders of this concept. You can go anywhere with this scripture. You can really go anywhere and justify any and everything. But what our ancestors did, and I'll use the word, the Talmud, gave us the orders. They gave us the recipe. I would say. You might want to speak up. Come over here and speak up. It means taught one. Teacher, like students. Talmudim, he asked about the word Talmudim, which is a derivative of the word Talmud, right? The Talmudim is taught one of students.
Maura, you keep going in and out.
I don't know why it's doing this. He's asking about what the relationship is between Talmud, Torah, and Talmud. Right. So the Torah is that's the content, right? Talmud is more of the what could you call that? It is as well. But the student, the Talmud, the one who is learning Torah Talmudically. You have to learn Torah Talmudically. And Talmudically means you're now acculturating it. You're giving it its culture. You're putting right the so it's like in Ezekiel 37. This is 37, the dry bones. So the Torah is the bone. Talmud is like, you know, even the flesh, right? Not only is Torah, well, I want, yeah, the Torah, it's not Ruach, is but the Torah and the Talmud lead you to the Ruach. They lead you to the life breath of Yah, because it's Yah's mind. What's your name? So get over here. Get over here. Get over here. Don't look that way. You need to sit up. Come on, move, man. Move. Let's go. Sleek eye, Miss Pecan. Next week. I don't take this serious. You don't take it serious at all. You don't take it serious. Shut up. Don't even do that. So as we're dealing with these nations, or not these nations, these households, these tribal identities, it's important for us to really understand the importance of really having, I won't say just like the lineage connection, but the connection, because everything has a connection. And yes, it will have to come to that as relates to understanding the dynamics of the temple. But the key for us is to really transfigure, you know, and find our place in the order of this arrangement. All right. So when you look at, you think, you know, we know who we are, but when you look at things that are in the heavens, there are planetary bodies that actually get caught up in the orbits of certain planets. They become a part of it. Can we argue that? Is that a physical reality? Does that happen where a body of some sort, may it be a meteorite, even the moon, right? Do they actually enter into orbits of certain planetary figures and actually become a part? Do they actually orbit? Do they join that orbit?
Yes.
Do they collide? They may collide and become a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this is the same principle. And this is what this is supposed to do. And the reality of it is there are certain elements that will be completely destroyed in the orbit of this particular body, or there will be things that will assimilate and become a part of its existence. And this is what we have to prepare ourselves for. And this is across the board of life. You know, that's a universal principle that applies to so many different aspects of our life. Is that we have to guard ourselves, even from ourselves at times. We have to be able to make sure that what we're putting in our orbit or allowing into our orbit is of Yah. And if it's not of Yah, well, we must learn to destroy it. Any thoughts, comments, questions? Okay, cool. We're on point then. We're on point. And so, looking at this order from the firstborn, they didn't go to the youngest because they, you know, Benjamin would have been the youngest. But why do you think they have it ordered this way? What's the significance of this being ordered this way? I mean, that's what, because Yah is calling these tribes into existence, just like he named each tribe. Let me just scoot back some. You all easy. Thank you. What is the purpose of, why is he calling these stars into order like that? There's a psalm that comes to my mind.
Well, I think that the birth order, is still here is important.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even though Reuben had his problems, I thought that was interesting that, he's being called here,
Mm. Right. Ruben
first.
called first, right.
Right. And that kind of struck me too,
Very powerful.
because you kind of thought that he would have been somewhat diminished, but he is still the firstborn.
Right. Now keep in mind, this is some generations down the line, right?
Mhm.
And so we're seeing that this is a new reality, and that he's establishing this in the order that can be viable for the nation to manifest. But even looking at that, it's so interesting just saying that, turning to Psalm 147, it says, praise Yah, for it is good to sing praises to our Elohim, for it is pleasant. Praise is fitting. Yah builds up Yerushalayim. He gathers the outcasts of Israel. So we can look at Reuben like he was an outcast in his actions. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. This is like his second chance almost. Then verse 4, and this is what I was wanting to go to. He appoints the number of the stars. He gives names to them all. Right? So when you're looking at what he's doing with Israel, he's giving names. He's naming the houses and the leaders, the orders and the anointed ones. You could call them the constellations even, that he was actually bringing forth. And so interesting things about constellations that they have a main name, but there's other stars in that constellation besides just what that constellation is called. So this correspondence, this reflection, this, as above, so below reality is something that we need to heed in order to manifest the reality that Yah has called into existence. And this is why knowing science, this is why knowing astronomy and knowing, physics and knowing these things are so important. Maimonides was a huge proponent of that. And this is what even understanding what Yahushua says in John 3, he says, if you don't understand the matters of earth, how will you understand the matters of heaven? So when we go back to say that again, right, you have to understand the natural law. That's why he used parables. He related earthly principles and circumstances to heavenly realities and the principle of the heavenly reality. And so this is what is to take shape as a result of Israel receiving the instructions and following the instructions. It's a simple course. It's not easy. We all have to get out of our own way, right? And be who Yah has called us to be. You heard that this morning. Get out of your own way and be who Yah has called you to be. And that's the biggest challenge for each and every one of us. In order for, I'm gonna go to chapter 2. Anything from chapter 1, anything else from chapter 1 that anybody wants to deal with? These are the 603,550 that Yah has set up.
Well, I just want to point out the fact that our genealogy, it's basically genealogy, and it's oral, like you said, it's oral history, and it's documented. And so it's so important to be able to refer back to it in order to, for one, figure out the missing pieces, find out where we are today, and then to prophesy about it in the future. And it's just the fact that a prophesy, in regards to the future, but it's just the fact that there's just been a disconnect between the actual study of astronomy and Earth and making the connection. And I believe it was purposely done, but throughout the Bible, throughout the scriptures, there's constant reference made to astronomy, to the stars. They name them in the scriptures, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've been around since the very beginning of time, and that's what they use to. That's what the three wise men used to determine when the Messiah had come to earth. But
Yep.
you know, it's just the whole thing that I'm just now realizing, and then want to be like asking a stupid question, like the stars and this movement in the stars that change. I mean, because sometimes you just, I just, think that they're just fixed up there,
Mhm.
and I guess, I mean, they are based upon the rotation of the earth, but there has to be some type of change involved in them in order for the three wise men to even
Right.
be able to determine.
Well, again,
Yes.
that's the orbit. That's the position of the Earth around the sun as the sun moves and the solar system moves through this galaxy. As the galaxy moves through the universe, like you have to keep in mind, this is such a big picture, right? And then that's all in the mind of Yah. Everything that is ultimately going on is about being a cell, a component in the overall structure of the mind and body of Yah. That's just the profundity of it, like, and we have to really start to see how this all accords. And again, we went back to this earlier. The oneness of the matter is what is so significant, and finding how this all strikes harmony. How do we concert this? How do we orchestrate this into the reality that Yah has called into being? And it's through following these orders and these instructions and understanding. And I'm gonna say this too: it takes military discipline. It takes a military discipline, and that, so interesting is saying that IUIC has a very interesting layout,
Mhm.
and that is pretty much akin to what when you really think about it. It really is. I mean, they're doing a big part of this, but it comes down to really understanding, again, the orders of Yah, getting in even into the timing of Yah. What is Yah's times? Because there's different reckonings of time that we're dealing with. But the body has to play its role. Everybody has to step up into his role, into his lane, into his orbit, its respective orbits, and make it happen. Imali, all right. I'm not going to ignore your hand. I see you, ma'am. Yes, please.
Mhm. No, I was just thinking as you were talking about the layout. Ima and I were looking at that earlier this morning. Some illustrations of the camp, and I mean it's an awesome thing to see. It was just perfect. But the thing that I think about too is that Yah is in the center of it. The presence of Yah is in the center. It's not, you know what I'm saying? It can't be done. We can't do what we need to do without Yah. And I think this order couldn't happen without that Mishkan being in the center.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. That's just amazing. Look at that. Could you imagine? People seeing this encampment like this? Wow.
Order, very much so. So this is the east. Is this the east?
Yeah.
No, this is west. No, it's W. I mean, I don't know where's the map. I don't have no. I'm not certain. I believe this is the east here. This is Judah. This is Reuben. I'm sorry, Ephraim. This is Dan, and this is Reuben. And so, as we get to Numbers 2, unless anybody else has anything else with number 1 before we get to Numbers 2, I was going to ask this: why were the Levites not counted? Why were they not reckoned? Okay, they're set apart to Yah.
Yeah, they're on the inside of the temple. I mean, yeah, they're on the inside.
But you don't need to know who's who and what's what with that. You know what I'm saying? How are we going to capture their genealogy? Because you see what happened in chapter 3. I believe.
Well, they are counted. Their genealogy is
Mhm.
counted later
Right.
on. In
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. You might be wrong. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we were kind of looking at that too, that about the Levites, and it was saying in, let me put my glasses on. And I think it's in Exodus 32, I think that's what it is, when it was talking about the Levites, when they were the only ones that had stood with Moshe when during the time that they had made the golden calf.
Right. Exactly.
And I wrote down the Levites remained loyal
Mm-hmm.
when the people were worshiping the golden calf, and
Right here.
then they got something in the book of Jubilee. Now I don't know where it's at, but that at one point they did afterwards, after everything, after that they did get they were the tithes, they were the 10th,
Mm-hmm.
they were the 10th of everything, but I don't know where that's at. But it's supposed to be in the book of Jubilee. So I mean, that's what I kind of, well, we were studying about it to find out what had happened with the Levites.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Interesting. Told off for that. Would anyone else want to offer anything in terms of why Levi was not counted in this census, in this particular census? Because remember, this is for those going out to the army and literally combating. Levi was with them, but there was a different role that Levi played. Momo. Momo. Momo.
So they had the total care of the sanctuary, or all of everything, so they would not be fighting, because that was their job.
Right. Right.
So I could
They,
see why they wouldn't be counted.
Mhm. So keep in mind, what's the relationship of Levi to Israel?
They're the priesthood.
Okay, so the priesthood really. Well, let me ask this question: What was it that our church was called during the antebellum days, the days before the Civil War? What did they call the church or the institution? The invisible institution before the war. Why was the church the invisible institution?
Well, I'm gonna just take a stab at it, but I believe because what was, spirituality
Mm-hmm.
is basically something that you can't see. It's faith based,
There you go.
and it's based on a belief system that's unchangeable.
Right. As Yah is unseen in our life, the movement of Yah in the national life is not something that can just be put out. Right? Do not cast what is holy before swine. So Levi is shielded. Levi is covered by the other 11 tribes, 12 particularly.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Were the Levites, they were within every community, right?
Mm-hmm.
were mixed in with every community. They were like the priests of each community or area had Levites
Right.
that within them.
Mm-hmm.
So they were not counted as a like a group per se, but they were actually mixed in with the whichever community they were serving.
Right, within the townships of Judea. And actually Ephraim, the northern tribe, because there was a split.
Mhm.
Yep. So you're dealing with houses though.
Mm.
Certain houses only attended to the temple, to the mikdash. And there were other houses that were more involved in the daily affairs of the communities which they found themselves like. So it varied by household identity, household role. And again, these are the orders, these are the assignments, right? The appointments of the different members and families and individuals of the nation. But it was that order. It was a well-oiled machine, so to speak. But at the same time, it was an organism. You had this living temple functioning on a daily basis. To the point that they assembled together on these days of assembly, to the point that they fasted together nationally on the day of fast, to the point that they held a lot of observance, pretty much every observance in common. They knew what to do if there was sickness and a disease in the camp. From the family to the nation. They knew their orders, they knew them. So when we look at this, they're counting everybody, but these people, just think about this. What has to be possessed by the people who are being registered? What type of consciousness has to be present? What do they have to have?
They had to have a sense of nationalistic pride, for one.
Very much so.
And
Huge.
And just a sense of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Also a sense of purpose, a purpose for living, because now it's just bigger than me. I'm doing this for a whole nation, which goes back to the national side of it. But I think really it also preserves rituals that each family knows their role. That's going. I mean, it's establishing your history and your future, and what is to be carried out for generations to come, and it's establishing a connection to your family's eternal connection to the Most High as well. So it's doing so many different things, but I think most of all, I think it's a preservation for what is to be done in the future in your role, is your family's role in the nation.
That's huge. That's huge. Hallelujah. Todah for sharing that. So in that being the case, what would you say that culture is a composition of shared what? Culture is a composition of shared what?
Norms and values.
And those norms and values can be like even more singled down to one principle. What? A consciousness is great.
Of obedience, really. I mean, it all goes down to obedience and what we're supposed to be doing.
Right. So I'm gonna throw this out here. Culture is the shared culture is shared ideology. Culture is ideology, perspectives, outlooks on life that are shared by a group of people. And the way you would derive those ideas is through the instruction that as students of this particular culture, that we learn and we take on. And we do this selflessly. This is one of the key things to being a ruler in this particular consciousness. Go to the room, get the book on my dresser. It's a red book on the nightstand. On the right, where the lamp is. I want to read this because this is all about selflessness. Israel, in this particular capacity here, these 603,550 registered individuals, number one, had to be full of selflessness. They had to put themselves aside. They had to realize there was something bigger than them that they were a part of. And so, thank you. In understanding that, it was their then responsibility to live according to that. The word midbar, from where we have BeMidbar, comes from a root meaning to lead or rule. The midbar is one who submits to that rule. The person who is a midbar or in the midbar is submitting to the rule. The person who negates his own self, realizing that he has no power to act without the life flow of Elohim. Right? This is so important. The nations of the world also revere Yah as the El of Elohim, but Israel alone are like the midbar. They have no power or leadership at all on their own. They're following the inspiration of Yah as revealed by his word. His word is living, but his word as it lives through the ideas of the people will come to a vision that will allow for them to bring forth reality that Yah has planted inside them. Where's the kingdom found? Within. So this is why study is so important. This is why congregation and convocating are so important, because it will allow for you to connect energetically, in spirit, in oneness with those who you're growing with, and forming a bond with. And this is where the iron sharpens the iron. This is where the meat and potatoes nourish, because when we study this word, unquestionably, that's where the mind will find its shape. You can praise all day. I'm not saying praise is bad at all. You know, you can do a lot of things, but I'm saying this: if we are going to be of one mind as a people, this is where the rubber hits the road. This is where we put our opinions and our thoughts aside, and we start to on the mind of Yah. I believe this. What you believe is in consequence of what the will of Yah is. This is what we have to understand. It's that deep. What we think, what we feel, what we believe, what we even say we know ourselves is refuse compared to what Yah has for us. And that's why we have to come to know what Yah's perfect will is. We're told that the fear of heaven applies in the open and in secret. In the open means to know that Yah oversees all things. This brings us to a state of awe. We know that Yah is awe. We remain in awe. Like, how does Yah do all that? So we go into a reverence, understanding the omniscience of the mind behind the minds. But in secret means that the fear of the Most High attaches itself to a person's very life force so that he can do nothing, not even make a simple movement without remembering that it takes place through the power of the Most High, that he himself is but an axe in the hand of the one. And this is where that submission comes into it. This is where it becomes a challenge for us, because we find ourselves doing our own will. And I can speak this for myself, as most of my life has been about me doing what I want to do. ultimately. So ultimately, I have come to worship myself because it was my will that was being done. And this is what we have to unlearn to become a true midbar, to go in the wilderness. And sometimes that's the trek we have to go into. Imali Uri, I see you real quick. My last shared thought. We have to sometimes go into a wilderness experience in order to get refined and the lessons we need to come to a place where we realize, guess what? It's not all about me. All right, Iman.
Yes, that was awesome what you were saying. And I was going to just comment again on, as you had said, that we have to have Yah operating in us. And I wanted to point again to, when you think about that illustration, that Yah was in the center. It's a square. It's set up around, the Mishkan and all. But just when you think about Yah being in the center of the camp like this, in the very center, you could see the fire, you could see the smoke, you could see, the people could see like early on, it was like they could stand in the tent and see, standing there at their tents and see. The strength of all of that. And my thought too is purpose. Like, how do we bring the purpose that we need as a people, to be on a one accord, but also to have a purpose to get the community part done.
Yes, ma'am.
That to me is a job that we have to think about, and as time goes, what are we willing to do to really have community in some way? We have to come out of our comfort zone somehow,
Right.
to create community.
That can be a challenge for us. You're absolutely right.
It
Can
is.
be a challenge. Where would you say we get that particular mindset from? Where do we get the lack of community consciousness from? The insignificance of community. We don't need to have a united front mentality. Where does that come from?
Well, it comes from, we live in an individualistic society of private ownership in itself. We have private property. And so that's the basis of Western living is, private property. And so, and individualism, and it's competitive by nature. And so it breeds contention, jealousy, and all of that, because we're fighting against one another. And it creates more of a like, I can't be successful if he's successful,
Right.
type of thing. And we're all scrambling for the same crumbs. So I think that's basically the whole idea also of divide and conquer as well. If you have two, just like, in labor relations, the master class, the person that owned the plant, or they always, they had the scabs and the people that broke the strike and the actual workers, they were fighting against each other always.
Right.
And
Right.
if you're a strike breaker, but you're all still just scrambling for crumbs anyway. But if they could get us to focus on each other and focus on what's in front of us instead of the controlling dynamics, then they can hide behind all the emotions and stuff that we have amongst each other, that's keeping us from seeing the clear picture.
Right. Right. Say la. I would add to that, this is a transfer of consciousness. This is a reprogramming. This is for us being taught what you could say through trauma and through, what do you call that? Assimilation. Us to take away our love for Yah with the love of the world. We have sought to chase and seek after the world as opposed to the kingdom. So when we look at this stuff, you look at 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 through 17. Do not love the world nor that which is in the world. For if anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him, right? So the love of the Father tells us to love our neighbor as ourselves. The love of the Father tells us to not go about having interest, even seeking out interest. So when it's talking about don't go by interest and have usury, this means don't even enter into certain contracts where we know that's going to take place. We have to use wisdom and love Yah over this world, because there may be a need that the world will offer us, but at what price? At what point? Right? Yah wants us to be wise in our agreements, in our alliances. Okay?
And
He would want us to see unity. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I just kind of need to piggyback on that. When you look at Black people in politics, for instance, it's just a perfect example. You know, I was having a conversation with an older gentleman that had been engaged in political activity here in Kansas City for decades. And I was talking about, even though I asked him about the LGBT movement and, you know, what he thought of that. And he said, well, you know, them people, they vote with us all the time. They vote with us all the time. Okay. And so what does that mean? They vote with us all the time. No, what's happening is they're voting with us for their issues. Our issues aren't even really being addressed. But we, as a Black community, in a lot of cases, not everybody, have sold our souls to the Democratic Party. And right, and are willing to accept whatever it throws at us, because we're beholden to the political party, to a particular political party that's always used Black people. So the thing is, I mean, yeah, I mean, the thing is that you can't even see that you sold your soul. You put the Democratic Party before Yah, before yourself. Even that you, I mean, and I asked him
in Yah's kingdom, exactly.
And I asked him, I said, well, what do you think about a transgender wanting to compete with, you know, females, you know, in boxing, swimming, track, whatever? Now, you know, I don't agree with that. Okay, but this is what the Democratic Party is pushing with the LGBT agenda. So you don't agree with these things, but since they're the Democratic Party, you will vote that way. And this is something that, I mean, it's a phenomenon that politically is a perfect example of how.
Let's also deal with the reality of choice, right? Now you could say it's nature all day. Some people would argue this is a predisposed genetic reality. Arguable at best, right? This is a choice that people make. But when it comes to being an Israelite, when it comes to being quote unquote or classified as an African American or a Black person, there is no choice in that. And the rights that are afforded to us, you know what I'm saying? We can't hide who we are from that. We don't have a choice in that, exactly. And so our fight is much different, you know, and people would argue different. There would be people who would argue to the contrary, but the reality of the matter is our fight now. And again, let's deal with the issue of morality. Let's deal with the issue of ethics. Let's deal with the issue of human nature and the purpose of human nature, right? And even though depopulation is a big push nowadays, the reality of being fruitful and multiplying in terms of what kingdom we're about. Now, this could be the position of the other world's kingdom all day. That's that world's kingdom. That's that world's order. So you have to ask yourself, whose world are you functioning in? Whose kingdom are you operating in? And so it becomes clear when you understand the principles of that kingdom. Before I get to you, Akwaya, there was a question that was going to be asked by my brother here. So I want him to ask his question, and I'll come after his question. Okay, he asked about how to delineate being a lover of the world from understanding how to be in harmony with nature and the environment and things of that nature.
I think
When
it's
you're saying,
yeah.
I was gonna say real quick, the world is the system
Right.
of which the world is functioning by. So when Yahushua says that my kingdom is not of this world, he wasn't talking about some different planet. He was talking about it's not operating the way that Caesar's system operates. So he's thinking of the operation of the worldly system, right? More so than the everyday natural occurrences in nature, right? That's something that we affect. And so understanding the effect of those is important, but you will know the difference by understanding the orders of the kingdoms of which you are supposed to function and operate. So with he said, just 1 second. Undeniably. Right. He's talking about Adam having dominion over this world. Right. And this is where Matthew 4 comes into the matter when we see what Yahushua dealing with Satan on 3 occasions. What Satan was offering Yahushua was the world. And he affected these 3 things. So do not love the world, nor that which is in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Because all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh. He told him, if you are the son of Elohim, turn this bread and these stones into bread. That's the lust of the flesh. That's to satisfy a fleshly desire, right? Then he says the lust of the eyes. He says, you know what? If you're who you say you are, I will give you all these kingdoms of the world and their riches. He sees that. He sees the lights and the flashes and the gold and all that. The lust of the eyes. And he says, if you are the son of Elohim, throw yourself off this building, because he said he won't allow your foot to dash on a stone. That's all pride. That's ego. See, he overcame the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, which is not of the Father, but is of this world. So if we are being led by these 3 desires, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, we're seeking worldly gain, worldly benefit, worldly riches. But if we're seeking the kingdom, lust isn't going to be of the equation. It's going to be first the love of the Father and righteousness. We're going to seek those things first, no matter what. Is this something my Father's kingdom prohibits? And that is righteous? Is this the righteous thing to do? Not just the right thing. Is this the righteous thing to do? Because believe it or not, you could be doing something that is right, but not righteous. You could be doing something that could be very well right, but not righteous, right? For instance, you could be disciplining someone's child, in the way that you think is right, but it may not be the righteous thing to do because, I'm just trying to think of an example. That may be a far stretched one, but it's like, there's things that we can do that are not necessarily righteous all the time. I'm gonna come back to you, Akraya. I did see your hand. Akraya had his hand up. I did want to get back to him, but did that answer your question? Hallelujah. Akraya, yes, sir.
Hey, Shalom. Sometimes I get a question that, when we say be not of the world, and at the same time, we say that, everyone is waiting on this kingdom that, that Yahushua is supposed to bring. But then when we speak about that kingdom, then it's so that we supposed to bring forth the kingdom. And I think sometimes as a people, I think we get the worlds mixed up. Like you was saying, that we know that there's light and there's darkness. But we know that when we say the world, or when some people thinking about heaven, they think about another planet or outer space, where our heaven is supposed to be on earth. That's why he told Adam, and we are the sons of Adam, that we are supposed to rule this world.
Yes, sir.
And so what sometimes what I get confused with is that we say that all right, if you go for the silver, the gold, or the richer, or the things of this world, then somehow we seeking the things of this world, but yet Abraham, Isaac, David, they had silver, they had gold, they had land, they had things of this world. But they wasn't using those things for wickedness
Right.
at the same time. And then at the same time, we see that the curses, part of the curses to have those things taken away from us.
Right.
But if we keep the Torah, keep that, we supposed to get those things back. We supposed to become the head and not the tail.
Right. The borrower and not the lender and not the borrower. The lender and not the borrower. Right. Right.
So if we doing these things, and once again we becoming the head again, and we bringing forth our own nation, just like, I mean, for instance, like the Mona, you know, they're in Israel, that's like a world, you know, like, you know, they could be an example. If, you know what I'm saying, if they, for instance, like us, if we started doing the things to bring forward our own government and bring forward our own kingdom.
There it is, there it is. You just addressed the issue. So I'm going to take it to this point. Yahushua was asked about, is it right to pay taxes to Caesar? Right? He says, well, give me a coin. Whose picture is this? This is Caesar. So give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, but give to Elohim what belongs to Elohim. This is what we have to come to understand, right? Those parables are meant to teach us and instruct us what kingdom we're to engage. We need to create everything on our own. When we're talking about the kingdom, this kingdom is not of this world. It is not of Caesar's kingdom. This is what we have to understand. So when you're talking about even the voting e-staff, we have to get away from that stuff. This stuff is cursed. It is cursed. And it's wicked. And it's against Yah. This is what we have to understand. This is a challenge that we have before us in giving birth to the kingdom that Yah has put within us. And establishing this. Giving birth to a kingdom. This is what Yah is talking about. These birth pains of Mashiyach. Well, guess what? Mashiyach is the government. Unto us a child is born, and on his shoulders shall be the government. That's talking of the Messiah. But the Messiah is our national reality. It's the oneness of us. It is us united and operating with the orders of Yah. That's what this child is. If you just want to say that's Yahushua, you're missing it. I was listening to a song today. I believe that Yahushua is the Son of God. Are you the Son of God, though? Do you fit in that equation somehow? Because if you have the body, you need to be the same reflection. They call it the law of equivalence of form. The law of equivalence of form. If we are Yah, the law of equivalence of form should make us in his image and likeness. We should reflect that. Imali Oriah, yes, ma'am.
Well, your mind went where I was thinking. I was turned to Isaiah chapter 9. And thinking about the government. I was thinking about
chapter 9 of what? I'm sorry, my chapter 9 of Isaiah?
Chapter 9 and verse 6 and 7.
Okay.
I was thinking about that lineup, you know, of that formation. And then when we were talking about governments, something that I've shared a lot with people is that, you know, when we look at the parties and all that, they've never, I mean, neither party, they've used us and discarded us however they wanted. Right. But then when we want to look to a government, it's here. Exactly. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6 and 7.
No. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Okay. You know, because for unto us for a child shall be born to us, a son shall be given unto us, and the rule is on his shoulder, and his name is called Wonder, Counselor, Strong El, Father of Continuity, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his rule and the peace there is no end, and upon the throne of David and over his reign, to establish it and to sustain it with firstly ruling and with righteousness from now on and forever. You know, we worry about righteousness. We worry about right ruling. We worry about continuity, all these things. We try to ascribe these to humans. And we're getting to the point, I think we can see and feel that it is just absolutely at an end.
Right.
The
Right.
governments are not righteous. They have pretended to be, and you kind of know, oh, they're not righteous. But now it's like the top is pulled off of it.
Right.
All of the wrong and the unrighteous that have been done to the peoples, the original peoples, the people of color throughout the earth, is every time you turn around, somebody's peeling it back.
Right.
So I think that our role, and it's difficult because we're hoping to help our community. I know the feeling. We're hoping to be able, we want to be able to work and do something, but I feel that our concentration should shift.
Right. Undeniably.
To this.
Yes, ma'am. This is where we need to be focusing on, and not only focusing, but we need to be laboring towards making this a reality. And the biggest thing is this, and I appreciate your comments, Ima, very much so, because this is what the reality should be. But the thing that drives the corruption with these governments are these leaders, these politicians with selfish ambitions. They're not going into office by and large. Now, some of them might be in office for the people. There may be a handful of selfless representatives, civil servants. Let's be clear of who they're supposed to be, right? These representatives and civil servants in office. There may be very few, but most of them have selfish ambition, whether it's to get a name for themselves, whether it's to get riches, whether it's to just be in a position of power. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these people are not going into this office with the heart to serve. And then those who may have entered into that because this doggone game is so dirty, they're going to get turned out. Exactly. So he's saying all this is connected to the mystery Babylonian system, right? When you're dealing with these world governments, you're dealing with mystery Babylon. You're dealing with the most corrupt system there is in existence. And so trying to cause this beast to be changed from inside out is futile. No, you cannot. I would have given Babylon time to repent, but she would not. You cannot convert this whore into a bride. That's what we're dealing with. That's what Hosea 2 is telling us. Now, Hosea 2 was talking about Israel. Israel had the opportunity to repent and prayerfully does. But Babylon's a lost cause. Babylon is gone. And we have to understand that. And those are the two choices that we have. Are we going to serve Zion or are we going to serve Babylon? And if you don't know the markings of each of those systems, well, you are in for a blender experience. And every day we can wake up and say the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States of America, which is a Pledge of Allegiance to Babylon, or we can wake up and say the Shema and pledge our allegiance to Yah. That's the clarity of it. This is a political reality. It's that distinct, though. And that's a harsh reality. But this is what Yah's talking about. He's chosen Israel. He's chosen Israel to be the light to the Gentiles. And if you are amongst the chosen, well, you got some duties to carry out. You got some responsibilities to be handling. You have a lifestyle to be demonstrating and a kingdom to be representing before everybody who you're dealing with. Because you are a diplomat. You're an ambassador. You're a plenipotentiary, right? You're an envoy, you're an emissary, you're a prime minister of this kingdom. You have business to conduct for the kingdom. And yes, you will have prosperity. Yes, you will be blessed with resources. And I'm just coming up some things that I heard today with my brother that is about to it could potentially change the game, because everything in America can be dealt with just a signature when you're dealing with the government. But when you're dealing with, there are services that we have to do some exchanges for, but there's some things that are already debt instruments in place that the government already pays for, and they're extorting money from us. The government is extorting money, and that's a bold statement on this forum here, but it is the truth. It's the truth. They're taking our dollars, our hard-earned money. And it's unconstitutional. When you really understand it, it is unconstitutional. They're in violation of their own laws as governmental entities.
When we talk about, when we talk about establishing our own kingdom, there is a physical connection that I think we have to point out as far as us having our own land as well, in order to bring it about, so that we can be totally autonomous of this system where you don't. I mean, because you are, the reason you render under Caesar what is Caesar is because you're in Caesar's land, or he's your sovereign, really.
Right.
But like, I mean, if you have your own land, or you focus autonomously, then you have your own water supply, you have your own power. You're not paying bills to this system. You have your own store. You're not paying your sales tax. I mean, when you're living in this system, whereas whenever you're going to their grocery stores, you're paying their taxes. That money you have no control over where that money's going. You only way you have any control of where that money is going to is by voting. In any case, I mean, because it's done legislatively, but in order to fulfill the kingdom on earth, you have to have your own land, and where you're not even unconsciously tied to this system in no way, shape, or fashion, because they really prefer you to just live here and not pay attention to what they're doing, and they'll really be able to push their evil, dirty agenda down your throat. You don't even know you're participating or supporting it. And so
that's the game.
Yeah, they want to keep you uninformed and not knowing what's going on. And it's kind of like when you don't participate, because they push legislation through that's demonic. I mean, you got people right now that, you really have to leave this place, because if you continue to stay here, you're gonna be subjected to it. You have people that are running for legislative offices right now coming up. All they want to do is push the LGBT agenda and do everything to disregard y'all, period. And
the only way to really go about establishing the kingdom is to unincorporate. That's a harsh reality. It may be more like the Matrix, where there are things that you can dip in and dip out, but you got to know how to dip in and dip out the Matrix, right? But for certainty, for Yah's kingdom and sovereignty to be established, it has to be distinct from Babylon. It has to be. Because Yah's principles by which he orders things is entirely different. The Torah is the code of ethics for every living activity or activity of life that we engage. It is the ethical code for every activity of life, from business to military to marriage to family to menstrual cycles. It covers everything. It covers everything. Birth, right? Even taxes. Tithing is pretty much the tax for Israel. It's pretty much the tax code.
Right. Oh, it definitely is. I mean, this is how taxes are supposed to be disseminated, used, collected, and used. But I think also
They understand the system.
while you are in
Oh, yeah.
this system, you still can govern yourself internally, and you bring about Torah within you still. And I think that's important. That's what you can do while you're living, at an address, paying taxes, this, that, and the other. Is that you're bringing about, you find that bliss, that peace, Torah within you, and you live that within you.
Say wow. Hold on for that, Aki. Akraya, yes, sir.
Yeah, you know what comes to mind, I can't think of, I don't know if it's doing around to me, the full chapter. We touched on that last week. We were talking about the wisdom and understanding.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things y'all said that those that keep that Torah, keep his wisdom, keep his understanding, then the nations that see us should say, I forgot how it goes,
It's
but
right
they're
here,
supposed
Aki.
to be able, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's on the board. It's on the board. Do you see it? Verse 6, 7, and 8.
They should say, how great nation,
Yes,
right?
sir.
So Abba knew we was gonna be spread it all up to the four corners of the earth. And just because we not in our land, if we keep it Torah, they still, and if they see it, if we keep it and if we show it with our action, when people see us and see our household, they should say those things if we really keep it.
100%. 100%. And see, this
And
is
by doing that, that's how like I believe that's Zechariah, when it say 10 nations shall grab your skirts because we heard you're a Jew. If we
Yup.
keeping
And Yah is
the
with you.
Torah, and we doing these things, then we're gonna pull these nations. We're gonna pull our brothers and our sisters that to the light.
100%. And that's the key, that scattering is deep because I had a conversation with this recently with some brothers in the KC Yashar Allah group. And I'm like, the purpose of our being scattered is to bring back a greater harvest. And to connect those who did not know Yah to Yah. This is why we're now scattered to the four corners. There was a plan to that. It just wasn't purposeless. It had an agenda to it. It may not have seemed to be pleasant for us, but in this experience, in this lesson, we are to draw the world to Yah still. And you think about what Hoshea went through to uplift the world. He had to suffer.
It's kind of like Matthew 13. Yeah, they had someone sowing the tares, but also Yah sowed the wheat.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And let them both grow up into the harvest. And then gather the tares and throw it into the fire. And see, people, that's a whole different story. But this wisdom that we have does bring forth this kingdom dynamic, this kingdom presence, right? This is where the Shekinah is really pronounced in the kingdom. That's what we have to understand. Yah will be felt when the kingdom is established because Israel will be one. And that's the only time the kingdom is going to be established, when Israel is one mind, one spirit, one faith, one immersion, one Elohim, one Mashiyach. So understand the ideology and the work to establish the ideology that goes into that. When you're dealing with military, you're dealing with ideas. You're dealing with pretty much, it's a war of ideas and strategy, and how to carry out the strategy to manifest the idea with that. I'm gonna say this is kind of a side note, but I'm proud of my oldest son. He got 3 books to read this summer. The first book he chose to read is The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And I'm glad that he's willing to and choosing to read that, because what we have to have an understanding of is how to move in order. And studying militaries is important. I got some more face. I'll cut myself. Studying military strategy is important, just like playing chess is important, because we have to know how to move on this board of life. And Yah tells us to move wise as serpents. right? And harmless as doves, if at all possible. And so as we deal with this encampment, you're dealing with a military formation, going back to the image of it again, right? You're looking at a military formation, and you see eyes all about this. Everybody has eyes. This is eyes all around it, right? Because you can see the let's say this is the east is looking at the west is looking at the east, but it can also see to the north and south of it. So there's eyes all around. What's behind the back of the west camp, the east camp can see with clarity, you know. So there are eyes all around this, and this is what Ezekiel is seeing in Ezekiel 1. This is what John saw in chapter 6. I won't say, was that chapter 6 where he saw the 4 living creatures? Where did John see the 4 living creatures? Chapter 4, I'm sorry, in chapter 4, in Revelation 4. So as we deal with this, put your shoes down. Your shoes are dirty. When you got Yahudah on the east, right? When you got Rehoboam on the south side, when you got Ephraim on the west side, and then you got Dan on the north side, you're dealing with the 4 living creatures. So this is the earthly reflection of the heavenly formation. Wait till he gets back. The earthly reflection of the correspondence of the heavenly formation. So when you're dealing with these 4 living creatures, you're dealing with Judah as the lion, again, Reuben as the man, Ephraim as the ox, and Dan as the eagle. And so this is the order of heaven, because what is taking place is you're dealing with the marching orders. What is your assignment? What is your role in this? How do you go out proceeding, right? In the order of your day, in the order of the kingdom. And so looking at Numbers 2, let's look up the word army in Hebrew. Let me do this real quick. This is going to be interesting. All right, now y'all had a whole thing. Numbers 2. So when we look up the word army, is it host? Are they using the word host? Yes, host. It is host. So the word that they're using for army is host. That word is sabah. It's where the word sevaot comes from. Yah of host. Yah sevaot, right? Yah of armies, the host of armies. Saba'ah. So this is from the 6633, a mass of persons, especially regularly organized for war. By implication, a campaign, literally or figuratively, specifically dealing with hardship and worship. It is an appointed time. It is an army, a battle, a company, a host, a service, soldiers waiting upon in warfare. But you think about what militaries do. They're not just all suited and booted for war. They do services. They respond to crises, right? They do different exercises. They're supposed to be providers of surplus and supplies in times of crisis and need. And so when we're looking at what the kingdom of heaven is to stand for in its army, you think of what's called, look, the Salvation Army, right? The Salvation Army provides needs to the people. But they're a military movement. Now they're 501c3, but they started out more militarily, and their orders are very military-like. And even with war, it's so interesting how America used these terms: war on drugs, war on poverty, war on ignorance, war on education, so on and so forth. Those are very strategic terms that they're using, but it's not unwise at the same time, but it's still letting you know that there is an approach to this with a military mindset. And that is something that can behoove us, especially in these days and times.
But we live in a militarized state in a sense, and the police are the military, basically.
Right. Right. Now, what's so deep about our kingdom is that all of us are pretty much deputized in the first place, because everyone in the kingdom is sovereign. Everyone in the kingdom has the authority to carry out our Father's business without prejudice. Now, that's the key, though. You have to do it without prejudice. You cannot have an arbitrary, personal, selfish motive in the matter. You have to be selfless in going about this. But when we're looking at these four living creatures, you have to understand this is about united Israel. This is about the praise and the worship and the service that we render unto Yah in spirit and truth. So when we look at Ezekiel 1, and we see this formation in Ezekiel, this heavenly throne on earth, this is not dealing with spaceships. This is not dealing with UFOs. It does deal with the chariot of Yah, yes, the Merkabah, but the Merkabah is about the consciousness of the people ascending and descending the ladder of Jacob and bringing these messengers, these energies, right? These intelligent energies into existence. Four faces, right? These four living creatures. Verse 4, I looked and saw a whirlwind coming out of the north. Where's Yah's throne at in Jerusalem? What side is Yah's throne in Jerusalem? Anybody know what side Yah's throne is in Jerusalem?
Is it east?
Nope.
It's not in the east.
No, it's not. Shabbat shalom to you, brother. And sister Tusila.
Shabbat shalom. Sorry, I'm late.
Hold on. So let's just do this. Let me do this. Let's go to Isaiah 14. So he says in verse 13, Isaiah 13, verse 14, for you have said in your heart, speaking of Hillel or Lucifer, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of Elohim. I will also sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. So the throne of Yah is situated in the north of that temple area, in the mount of the congregation, which is Zion. So he says here, I will ascend into the heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars. So he's replacing, right? So when we're looking at Ezekiel, Ezekiel saw this cloud coming from the north, this whirlwind coming from the north, which is where Yah's throne was established. Even though he was in Babylon at this time, he's having this vision pretty much of heaven. So brightness was all around it. Out of its midst, like glowing metal, out of the midst of the fire, out of the midst of it came what looked like four living creatures. He's seeing the kingdom descend from heaven to earth in consciousness first. So when the dove descended on Mashiyach in the Jordan, when John sees heavenly Jerusalem coming to earth, he's not seeing a literal thing. He's seeing a consciousness descend onto the people. He's seeing the idea being transferred from heaven to earth and the people receiving it and carrying it out. Out of the midst of it came what looked like 4 living creatures. This was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. Each one had 4 faces, and each one had 4 wings. Their feet were straight, which means they were in the direction they were going. The soles of their feet were like the soles of a calf's foot, right? They were ready for work, and they sparkled like the appearance of polished bronze. Very interesting color, because that is the glow that we are to emanate. Under the wings on their 4 sides were the hands of a man ready to do work as well. Each of their 4 faces had faces and wings. Their wings touched one another. They were united. They did not turn when they went, but each one went straight forward. Yashar Allah, to go straight forward. Israel goes straight on their path. We don't deviate from the direction that Yah has given us the order to go. The likeness of their faces, the face of a man, again, Reuben. Each of the 4 had the face of a lion. That's Yehuda, we know. On the right side, each had the face of an ox. That's Ephraim, the head of the west side. And the face of an eagle, which is Dan, which I believe, according to Numbers 2, was on the north side. So what we're seeing is the consciousness of heaven come to earth. And this consciousness coming to earth is to be received by the chosen and carried out to bring forth this kingdom. Because as he sees this, it has a purpose. What it's so interesting. What John saw in vision was the end before he saw the beginning, but he saw it come back fully in full circle. So in John 1, what you're looking at is you're looking at the completed reality of it all. But he has to show you what has to happen, with speed. So when we're looking at this revelation that Ezekiel is giving, right? Verse 26 says this, and above the expanse over their heads was the likeness of a throne, in appearance like a sapphire throne, and on the likeness of the throne was a likeness as the appearance of a man high above it, right? So this lets you know it is established. When the throne is seen and the one is seated on it, this lets you know that the business has been accomplished. Okay, so he sees the culmination and the fulfillment of this in its entirety, right? You're seeing the covenant, the rainbow, right? You're seeing fulfillment. Right, yes, sir.
Yeah, I got like 2 questions. Well, 1 question. All right, in Ezekiel, and the vision that he's seen in regards to the kingdom, Dan is there, but in John kingdom,
say it one more time, Mike. I'm sorry.
Okay, and in the vision that Ezekiel had when he saw the kingdom, he saw Dan, right, and Dan represent the northern kingdom, or that I forgot you say the man, was it the man? I forgot.
Dan is the eagle.
The eagle, okay, correct. And then in John, he see the kingdom, but Dan is not there, but he see the eagle. So is the translation resulting to Dan is did they translated that wrong or what?
That's a good question. I'm gonna go to Revelation 7 and see. So here you have Yehuda, Reuben, Gad, verse 5. 6, Asher, Naphtali, Menashe. Shimon, Levi, Yissaschar, Zebulon, Yosef, Benjamin. So this is what you're saying, like Menashe and Ephraim replace Dan with someone else, actually. Is Asher in there? Yeah, Asher's in there. Shimon, Levi, Yehuda.
Because Levi shouldn't be there, right? Not in that count if he's supposed to be in the midst, or is it because did Levi replace it or
Menashe and Ephraim more so. Because Levi's a
Okay.
part of the 12, even though Levi is not counted in the census for numbers, it's a little different. This is a
Okay.
reckoning of the 12 tribes.
Gotcha.
So this has a little difference. This was not for like, well, that's a good question what this is for. I have to look more into this, because this, now you've cracked something that's very interesting. So I'm gonna have to look into this some more myself. And I would encourage you all to do the same to see what this rendering is about.
Yeah, because Dan is not there. Is
Nope, Dan isn't there. And Dan isn't there. Now keep in mind what Dan did later on down the line, if I'm not mistaken, with the concubine woman that was in Benjamin, and how they cut her up in pieces and stuff, and then they pretty much cut Dan off. And I believe that was Dan.
I think that was Benjamin that did that.
That was Benjamin that did that?
Yeah,
Is Benjamin
yeah, they
in this
wanted
reckoning?
to fight them. They wanted to fight them after that.
yeah, that was Benjamin.
Okay, I stand corrected. That's real. So that was Benjamin. I knew it was around. I thought either Benjamin was the township in which it happened, or he actually was the one that did it. But Benjamin was the one who did it. My mama.
But why am I still counting 12?
Because Ephraim and Menashe has replaced them.
I see. Yep. Mhm.
That's something I can look. So Asher, Benjamin, Dan, Gad. Is Gad in there? Gad is in there. Joseph? Is Joseph in here?
Yeah, Joseph.
Joseph's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Judah, Levi, Naphtali, Reuben, Simeon, and Zebulon. Zebulon's in there too. Reuben, Gad, Yehuda, Asher, Naphtali. Menashe is a substitute of Dan. Shimon, Levi, Yissaschar, Zebulon, Yosef, and Benjamin.
Okay, now wasn't one of them swallowed up? I mean, wasn't one of them consumed into another tribe? I mean, when was that? Back in when the kingdoms were split, you had the kingdom of Judah, the tribe of Judah up to the north, right? And then you had Israel to the north and Judah to the south. Isn't that correct?
Right.
And was not Dan kind of swallowed up somewhere? What was it in the scripture? He was kind of swallowed up into one of them. Maybe is that the reason why? Or is it Dan?
That's a good question. I'd have to look into why Dan was not counted in that census, so to speak. Yeah, that's the interesting parallel. Can you hand me? There's a book without a spine on the top shelf, like the fourth book from the right. Right on over here, Aki, over here. Yes, sir. On the shelf. Top shelf, fourth book without a spine.
Well, he dropped a nugget on that one, didn't he?
Go back one. To the other way. It doesn't have a spine on it. It's just right next to the white one, to the right. Yes, sir. So let me take a look at why Dan, it may be in here. If it's not in here, I'm gonna have to find somewhere else, just in terms of just commentary to see what it says. Give me one moment. No doubt. Yes, sir. Go through the bead straight ahead. The 12 tribes of Israel, not including Dan and Ephraim, multiplied by 12,000. This census of the righteous member of the righteous resembles military lists like those from the first Qumran scroll. John's eschatology revolves around the restoration of the tribes of Israel, as in Ezekiel 37:15 and Job 13. This affirms the fundamentally ethnic ideology of this book, but it doesn't say why Dan is not mentioned. It just talks about they're not in here. Ephraim and Dan is not mentioned in here. That's what's not mentioned, the tribes of Dan and Ephraim in Revelation 7. So Menashe and Naphtali, Manasseh. So we're missing Dan and Ephraim. Yep. Yehuda, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, Shimon, Levi, Yissaschar, Zebulun, Yosef, and Benjamin. Even though Ephraim, keep in mind, is one of the 12 sons of, two sons of Yosef, so he wouldn't be prefigured. So Manasseh replaces Dan. And Ephraim stays in his position as one of the descendants of Yosef.
But so is Menashe or Manasseh. Isn't he a descendant of Joseph as well?
Yes.
So
So he replaced Dan in this particular census.
But but I thought Ephraim was on the east or the west side, opposite from the east side.
Right, but these are not the 4 living creatures. These are just the number of tribesmen from each of these tribes counted in the 144,000. This is not necessarily the configuration. The configuration you actually see in the previous chapter.
Time.
I want to say it's chapter 4. Yep. You see the configuration in Revelation 4, verse 7. Actually, verse 6 and 7. Give me 1 second. In Revelation 7. Let's see. It seems reasonable. Both Dan, it says it seems reasonable. Where's it at? That the omission of Dan and the addition of Manasseh as opposed to Ephraim was because of idolatry. However, remember that we cannot know this for certain. The scriptures does not give an explicit answer. Note also that the list in Revelation 7 does not follow birth order. A consideration, a remez, which is one of the interpretations, the hints, that offers another possible reason for the variation in tribes and the order of the names. What's a remez? Jewish hermeneutics, a remez is a hidden message or a deeper meaning that is below the surface or behind the words. Let's look at a message that can be found in Revelation 7. The meaning of the names, so we know what Dan means, to judge. Let's see. If the tribe of Dan had been concluded or Ephraim added instead of Manasseh, or if the tribes had been listed in birth order, the message would have been different. So the message that you get with these names listed here, it says, praise Yah, he has looked on my affliction, good fortunes have come, happy and blessed am I, my wrestling has made me forget my sorrows. Elohim has heard me and has joined me and rewarded me and exalted me and adding to me the son of his right hand. So when you get these names listed down on how it is listed in Revelation 7, each of these tribes named, the message that you get is that particular matter. It says, praise Yah, he has looked on my affliction and good fortune comes. Happy and blessed am I. My wrestling has made me forget my sorrow. Elohim hears me, has joined me, rewarded me, exalted me by adding to me the son of his right hand. So that's what this message in the names mean from Yehuda to Benjamin. And that's why I was saying when we're even reading Numbers 1 and Numbers 2, there's a message in the arrangement of each of these names. With every leader and household member mentioned, or even every tribe, every leader, and every house that he comes from is mentioned, is because it contains a message. Eastaf,
Can I
what's
ask-
that?
Can
That
I
East-
ask
Oh, go ahead, Ima, Priscilla.
would we find part of the answer in the blessings when Jacob was going to die
Uh-huh.
and he called all his sons and he prophesied.
Right.
I would we find some of the answers there?
I would say so. Yeah, I mean, they're scattered throughout the book. He's got to learn to connect what is connected, and that does connect in a sense because he's assembling his sons, you know, before he transitions and giving them marching orders, so to speak. Let me tell you what shall befall you in the end of days. But in doing so, I mean, what would be the purpose of his Abba, of their Abba telling them that? Why would he tell them this is what is going to befall you at the end of days? What is the purpose of that? Why would you tell your children about something that you see that could happen in the future? What would be the purpose of you telling them that?
To prepare them for destruction.
Exactly. Prepare them. To give them the awareness of what they need to do to assure that those realities either do or do not come to pass. If it's negative, like, look, you don't want, this is something I'm gonna say, I see this here. This is what y'all show me. Right? So now you need to take the necessary steps to assure that that does not happen. Right? But if y'all have something for you, you're going to prepare yourself for it. Either way, it is about preparation. So very simply put, yes. Hallelujah. So those four living creatures about the praise and the worship of Yah. Remember, they are around the throne day and night. They protect the throne, but they also protect the people, and they also are the messengers. Anything else from Numbers 2? We're gonna have to kind of go ahead. Yes, sir.
Quick question, because he kind of piqued my curiosity. Now I remember, was not Dan carried away in the Assyrian captivity? And I believe it was there that Dan was sort of assimilated, if you will. And because you never really hear anything else about them after that point, really, you know what I mean? After they were carried away.
Right.
I wonder if that's when he was replaced. But Dan did do something, I can't remember exactly what it was.
Very interesting. I can see that. They kind of went into obscurity as a result. You know, the 10 tribes, even the southern kingdom, is still, we're dispersed. Even though there's a consciousness coming back to those, you know, to us as a people, you know, it's still somewhat disparate. We're not yet united and connected as one. We're uniting and connecting. We have to take all the more effort to make that a reality. And the way that's done, again, is quite simply by learning Torah and fulfilling it. That's what brings us together. So chapter 3, real quick, we're now dealing with the priesthood and the sons of Nadab and Abihu and those who are serving at the holy place. So Levi is being established once again, and we see their names. So there's a listing of names here as well. All these names again contain message. But now we do have the census of Levi. And this is to establish the houses so that individuals can be qualified as priests in the kingdom. That's the only purpose for establishing these houses within Levi is to make sure that we're keeping these fathers' houses so that we can know who is who and what is what when it comes to qualifying someone for the priestly pedigree. And this is how painstaking it was for Israel to maintain these records. We were very record-keeping people, very much so. And there were very specific duties each family in each house had. The duty of the children of Merari was the boards of the dwelling place, its bars, its columns, sockets, utensils, all its service, the columns of the courtyard with their sockets, pegs, and cords, right? So they had very specific functions and duties. And this lets us know that we too will have that. Just when you think of our human bodies, our bodies are composed of different members that have specific functions that allows for our unit to operate optimally. It's the same thing in the solar system. It's the same thing even with this planet. There's many different systems that function autonomously, but at the same time in concert. And this is what Levi is demonstrating. Levi is pretty much like the brain to the body for Israel. Levi is the brain, Yehuda is the will. So that is how this works. Levi gives us the full scope of consciousness, the information we need. Yehuda is the driving force behind the nation. Wow, that's the way to put it. That makes sense to you all? Does that make sense to you all? How Levi would be the inspiring principles of Israel in terms of dealing with like our physiology in the soul form, right? Like it's the mind, the knowledge, the information, and Judah would be like the will to carry it forth, because they are Judah is the ruler, right? The will is what rules in our body. So we can look at this in many different capacities and facets and understand how all this comes together as relates to putting ourselves under the rule of Yah. Now, and this is where it's so important. Yah's kingdom is orderly, almost to the degree like a military. And for those who would apply specifically, yes, it does. Now, there's a passage I want to share with you all real quick. This is a good passage. Give me 1 second. Can't spell. So this is 2 Timothy 2 and verse 4. Wow, this really makes sense. He says, you then, my son, I'm gonna read 1 through verse 7. You then, my son, be strong in the favor that is in Messiah Yahushua. And what you have heard from me among many witnesses, entrust these to trustworthy men who shall be competent to teach others as well. Suffer hardship with us as a good soldier of Yahushua Messiah. No one serving as a soldier gets involved in the affairs of this life in order to please only him who enlisted him as a soldier. And if anyone competes in a game, he is not crowned unless he competes according to the rules. The hardworking farmer ought to be first to receive his share of the crops. Think over what I say, for the master shall give you understanding into all of this. This is so important because when we look at this and we understand that Yah has called us out of darkness into light, he has separated us from the rest of the nations for the purpose of serving him. So it is like an enlistment. It's like we've been called into another kingdom. Can you call that nothing? Right. I can't. Does that make sense to anybody? Everybody hear that? Does that connect with anyone?
Makes a lot of sense. When I was
Yes,
a little
sir.
kid, they used to call us, they used to sing this song, "We are soldiers in God's army."
Come on now.
You know, as a kid, you never really pay attention to what they're talking about, but over time, it really hits you. It's like, okay, I'm supposed to be fighting for something good, not for, all of this rigmarole that's going on. So.
Yes, indeed. I'm just singing that with the boy. We sing that all the time. We have to hold it up until we die. Yeah. Hallelujah. So that's a very powerful principle. And I know you being a veteran, that makes that much more sense for you.
Yeah, it does.
It's very powerful because that's what Yah is calling us to understand, to give birth to this nation. It is very disciplined. It is very instructional. It is very orderly, right? And I would even say there are hierarchies within this. If Yah is king, there's nothing else that needs to be said. Okay. So this is where we have to really get into the fullness of understanding what this is in terms of our calling and what our duty is. And this is why Yah did not give us religion. Like, this is not a religious order, right? This is a national imperative. This is almost like a military order that is being given. That's why it's called commandments. Yah commands us to mitzvot our commandments. And the response is, sir, yes, sir. We shall be swift to execute Yah's will. This is why it says, my word that goes out of my mouth does not return to me void, but it shall do as I please and shall accomplish what I sent it for. That's like the imur, call response. This is what we have to understand. When Yah calls us to do something, he expects us to be swift in our response to execute. Yes, Ima. Ima Leo Ryan.
I'm sorry. I was reading that verse 4 where it says, no one serving as a soldier gets involved in the affairs of this life in order to please only him who enlisted him as a soldier. And I think about, I wasn't, my first husband was in the army, and I'll never forget how, he could just come home and start packing. You know what I'm saying? He would have to come home and just start packing, and he couldn't tell me. And that was being young and everything. Then you're left there, as a mate. But being a soldier, the soldier can't turn and tell a wife, well, I got to go out here and we're training. We don't know what's happening in the world.
Right.
But when they have to pack, you could have all kind of plans. You could, you could think you're doing something, but when it's time for them to pack up, they have to go.
No questions.
And there's no question. It's an order.
And you sign up for that. And that's the contract that
Yes.
God gives us. And our ancestors said everything that Yah has said we shall do.
Yes, we will do. Yeah.
It goes back to Exodus 19. And this is the national reality that we have to fulfill. Or not. I mean, the reality is you can do it or not. You just got to be willing to deal with the consequences. You can deal with a court martial, right? And there's judgment that will come, and there's justice that will be served. And so, those are the decisions we have to make. And this is why Yah tells us to choose life. And his word is life, but his life that he calls us to is one that is a selfless life. And it's one that is bent on servicing humanity in order to repair humanity, to heal the world, to bring forth reality, to dispel the illusion. And there are wars that we have to fight in order to engage in. That's what really has to be understood. We have to go to war with darkness. We have to go to war with lust. We have to go to war with hate. We have to go to war with envy. We got to go to war with any and everything that is against Yah. And I can say, like, man, I'm looking at this in a different way today. I didn't really look at it like that before. Like, we are enlisted to go to war with wickedness. We're called to wage war against wickedness and not always be on the defensive. From waking you up. If we always find ourselves on the defensive, we're going to be at a loss. You defend when you're weak. You attack when you know that you are strong, that you have the favor with you. So if we're always on the defensive and reacting to things and responding to things, we haven't mustered our strength. And the kingdom we read about earlier, what it said is about the mustering of the armies of heaven. It is about the mustering. I was like, what does mustering mean? It means to strengthen them. Where did it say that at? The mustering of the host of Israel can be compared with the mustering of the host of heaven. And this is why we think of the phrase, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. When you're always in season, when you're ready in season and out, you're able to respond appropriately to the circumstance. And Levi is invisible because our instructions that we're receiving are not to be seen, but they won't get it. They're not supposed to get it. When you think of sports teams playing, they don't know the game plan. They're not supposed to know the game plan of their opponent. They don't know the plays that they're going to run, but they have to be able to respond to those plays and to cover it. All right, Akeem, Shalom Aleichem. Let's see. So these are the things that we have to look to really bring forth in our consciousness. Any thoughts, comments, reflections? All right, Numbers 4, kind of wrapping this up, 1 through 20. So this is dealing with the holy vessels of the tabernacle. Mo, can you see them out, please? And how this particular house, the house of K-House, was to serve within the tabernacle. Yes, please. So they're very symbolic things here, the blue wrapper, the scarlet wrapper, the leather skin covering it, the matters of preparing to transport because you're dealing with the holy vessels. What color are the holy vessels covered in? The holiest vessels are covered in what color? And why?
Purple. Wait a minute. Oh, blue.
Blue. Okay. Why are the holiest matters covered in blue? What does the blue represent? Anybody remember?
I don't know why I thought of the sky for some reason, but then you got the cord of blue.
Water.
Right?
Water.
Somewhat, yeah.
The firmament.
There you go. You're dealing with the firmament.
Yeah, yes.
Right? The throne is sapphire. The throne is blue. It represents the head. It's royalty. But when you also look at the here's a question now. Let's see how you all know this. What color is blue on the spectrum of chakra colors? Anybody know what color blue is on the spectrum of chakras? It actually hits 2 chakras.
Purple.
What chakra level does blue represent on the chakra spectrum? What 2 chakra levels or chakra positions does the blue represent?
What is a chakra? Maybe I missed that or something.
Those are our 7 energy meridians, our energy points within our body from the root to our crown.
Okay.
So there's 7 of them.
What I
Yeah.
saw was, I'm looking on my phone, the throat.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
and the other blue and purple mixes together, comes to your what is
Throat.
that? Pineal gland.
Yep. Your brow, your third eye chakra, and you could argue we say your crown chakra.
Your head, right? But it's like
Right.
purple, blue.
So all of this is dealing with the 3 chakras. Where you wake up. So you're dealing with the crown energy. So when you're dealing with blue, you're dealing with crown consciousness energy. Okay. Scarlet, you're dealing with the lower energies. Okay. So you're dealing with the little lower energy. This is all representative. You got a purple wrapper for this here. This is the altar.
Wow.
Right.
Could you show? Could
When
you
you look at that blue,
post an example of the chakra?
So you have the root chakra, the base of your spine, your tailbone, red or scarlet. Orange is the sacral chakra, which is below your belly button. The solar plex chakra is just above your belly button. So you have orange at the sacral, you have yellow at the solar plex, your heart is green. It was interesting, my youngest was meditating today. He said, Abba, I saw green and red today in my meditation.
Wow.
He saw his heart chakra and he saw his root. And I asked him, what 2 chakras are those? He said, the heart and the root. I'm like, exactly. So that means you got to work on those.
hey Moray, like when you look at that blue in a Hebrew, it's select, which means violet or purple.
Okay. That's beautiful.
I noticed the very first, I guess that would be, like you say, the crown. And like that purplish bluish look to it.
Right. So this light blue is dealing with your throat chakra, which is about truth, not just personal truth, but truth, period. Your third eye, the brow, this is a deeper blue. This is more like an indigo blue, which deals with your intuition and psychic senses, your spiritual connectors. And this is the universal connection to oneness. This is the oneness, the crown chakra connects you to the all. So you look at your root, your power base, this is like survival instincts. This is your desire, your will, your force. This is dealing with emotions, creativity, even sexuality and self-expression. So the lower chakras are dealing with more your animal nature. This is your balancer and your regulator. This is where you should find your balance in your center, in your heart chakra. It's the 4th of 7 chakras. It's the dead middle or the live middle. And the 3 that come after that are your higher consciousness. So you got your lower bridge, your lower levels, and you got your higher levels, right? And the bridge to them is your heart chakra. But what the enemy in their scientific approach to music, vibration, and things of that nature, they know these things. They want to keep us operating at our lower level. And they do it quite simply with just frequencies and vibrations. And then that can affect the resonance of our bodies and determine how we operate. Now, this is all because we were talking about the colors of these vessels that are being used, right, in the service of Yah. But it points to a consciousness. It points to an energetic resonance that we are to have in terms of our awareness of what our members are for, what our body members are for, and how we are to represent these things. Because remember, the showbread, the poles, the menorah, all these things, the altar, they all have correspondences to our bodies in ways. So when we looked at the metallic Messiah, and how this all connects, let me see where the vessels are. Let me go to the vessels. Boom. So the floor plan shows us with the ark covered in blue, right? The menorah covered in blue, the showbread covered in scarlet, interestingly. The altar was also blue, but they have very corresponding relationships to our body. You can see the human being here. This may be better. So all this here foreshadows us. It's talking about us. Okay. Anything else from this particular chapter here?
I had a question or a thought. So in some instances, it was covered with the blue wrapper, but then the covering of fine leather. Is that kind of the leather? Is that like representing our humanness?
To a degree, but it's also a grounding energy. It grounds it, so it doesn't become as conductive. It's electrical.
Oh, yeah.
Insulating it, so to speak.
They
right?
are lively.
Yes, they are very electromagnetic vessels.
Mhm.
And so to ground
Yeah,
them when they
I
traveled,
see.
they had to use something like leather to ground it so it wouldn't conduct energy unnecessarily during those times of transport. So there are times when we have to cover our light. We don't always give off our light. When you look at that, right, there's times when we are traveling, when we have to protect the energy that we emit.
So Maury, that Indiana Jones wasn't too far off.
It really wasn't. It really was not.
Was not that far off.
But see, all that ultimately, and here's the thing that's so crazy, it's talking about the children of Israel, though. Those vessels are only points of reference so that we can understand how we are to function. The temple shows the nation how the nation is supposed to operate. It gives us a simulation of the reality that we are to carry out every day in our life. Bless you. So it was a corresponding reality. Heaven and earth. So heaven was supposed to be brought to earth. So the throne we know with Yah is in the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant was his throne. That was his throne. That's where the Shekinah manifested, right? It was surrounded by certain vessels. But the same thing was to take place outside of the tabernacle in the community. The order of service is supposed to be a playbook, a marching order, a manifesto, if you will, for us to carry out in everyday life. We just got to know how to crack the code and carry out the instructions. Does that make sense, people?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any questions about that? Any challenges? Is that challenging to see the capture? Or does that make sense? Is that clear for everyone?
All right.
Yeah.
I'm still need to learn about those how you say it,
Chakras.
chakra.
Yeah, I mean, we can get to those things. I mean, right now,
No, yeah, I
um,
understand. I just have to do a little study on it. That's all.
undeniably. But they're your energy centers and they can regulate. They're like a thermostat. So if your temperature is low, you know you're operating on a lower vibration. Right? You need the higher vibration. You need the higher energy. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
So when you're operating from your lower chakra, you're more instinctual. You're more just reactive. You're not really intuitive and in connection with the higher energies. You're more animalistic, right? And there are signs for that. You're lustful. You're operating from your lower chakras, right? If you're very willful and being very assertive in will and not in always in a positive way, you're operating from your solar plexus, right? So looking at that again, if you're like not lacking confidence, you're not, your solar plexus blocked. So these are energies that should flow. And when they're in their right flow, we're going to function in the right manner. But if these energies are blocked, or if they're going in counterclockwise ways or a counter way, we're going to be blocked in these areas, and we're not going to function at our highest capacity as the children of Elohim. Our formation is off, right? Our arrangement is not in order. So that's what Numbers 1-4 is talking about. Hoshea chapter 2 is just talking about the covenant. We're dealing with the covenant and assuring that our allegiance is to, and our fidelity is to our husband. I mean, even removing the names of the Baalim from the mouth. These things are so important. And I've used this analogy before. It's like being intimate with your spouse and calling them a name of your ex. Right? That's a disaster.
Yes.
Yah's name is to be set apart. Our Father, which art in heaven, set apart be thy name. That's why he says, you shall call me Ishi and not Be'eli. You're not going to call me your Lord anymore. You're going to call me my husband, because that relationship is going to be that much more intimate, right? In that intimacy, I'm going to reveal secrets to you so that you can understand how to walk with me, right? As I take you unto me as a bride forever, in righteousness, in right ruling, in kindness and compassion. And this is the balance. This is the severity, righteousness and right ruling with the mercy, kindness and compassion. We're balanced. We're regulated by that heart chakra with our crown consciousness and also our desire to exercise the right ruling. We are to have trustworthiness, right? And this is a key verse. It should be in that day. I answered the heavens and they answered the earth. Who are the heavens and who are the earth in this context?
It's Yah and the people.
Yes, but who are the heavens? So Yah makes who the heavens though?
He makes Israel the heaven.
There you go. How do we know this?
Hmm.
I'm going to go to the book of Lamentations chapter 2.
Okay.
Lamentations chapter 2. How Yah in his displeasure has covered the daughter of Sion with the cloud. Sion is another name for Israel, right? The daughter of Sion. He is cast down from the heavens to the earth, the comeliness of Israel, and has not remembered his footstool in the day of his displeasure. So when they're talking about I answered the heavens, he's talking about the people of the heavens. How else do we know that? Second witness. The second witness. as we're wrapping this up. I'm sorry, I was on second. Second witness is right here. As is the earthy, so also are those who are earthy. As is the heavenly, so also are those who are heavenly. And we have borne the likeness of the earthly, we shall also bear the likeness of the heavenly, right? So we have to put on the heavenly consciousness. We have to ascend to the crown. That's where the heavens are found. That's where Yah truly dwells within us, is in that area. But when he answers us, it's because we are connected to the mind of Yah. That's 1 Corinthians 2. We have the mind of Mashiyach. When we have the mind of Mashiyach, we have the mind of Yah. And the way that we derive that, again, is through studying to get the right ideas and opinions that Yah has left for us in his word and his instructions. So the heavens answering the earth is about us having the inspiration to lead the earth into the right kingdom. Going back to there. Bringing the right system to the world. Repairing the world and the age with the correct information and the right ideas. And that takes colonization. That takes kingdom going to war. And here's the thing, all war is not always physical. And we've talked about this several times. What is the objective of war? What is the objective of war?
You said, what is the objective of war?
Yes, sir.
Well, it depends on how you want to look at it. One would say war is to establish peace. War is a diplomatic tool.
Okay, that's where you really get into it.
War.
There it is. Mosiah, he said it out. Can you speak up and say it? Did y'all hear what he said?
I can't hear it.
He said to get the hearts of the people on your side. The objective of war is to win the hearts and the minds of the people. Right? There's two sides in war. The objective of war is to win, but the way that you win is really without delivering a blow. The most successful, effective campaign is to win without delivering a blow. How do you do that? You persuade the people that your perspective is the correct perspective. That my way is the best and effective way to do it. It's the most expedient thing to do. And that's what Israel has to first demonstrate. We have to create our kingdom before we can say, you know what, this is the way you want to live. Well, I can't tell because the way y'all living right now doesn't really reflect that. Y'all not in order. So that's what Israel has to do. We have to demonstrate what the kingdom looks like first and foremost in order to bring this world into righteous order. But guess what? This is what it takes. Righteousness, right ruling, kindness, compassion, trustworthiness. And then you righteousness, right ruling, kindness and compassion, and trustworthiness. But I guarantee you, the politicians today, when you're dealing with them, these characteristics aren't seen by and large. They'll portray them, right, in fashion and in form, but not in substance. And this is where we have to be found substantially fortified as the children of the Most High. Our righteousness is because we do all the commandments of Yah. The right rulings that we make are not by sight, but by faithfulness. We judge according to righteousness. Our kindness and compassion is based on discernment and wisdom. And our trustworthiness is rooted in love. And once all this is accomplished, we are able to serve Yah in spirit and truth who are able to serve these nations and bring them into right relationship with Yah and reconcile that breach that has taken place. And then we shall get the grain, the new wine, and the oil. And that anointing shall be, that Shekinah and that anointing shall be so profound on earth that no one can say there is no Yah. There will be no fools on earth. A fool has said in their heart, there is no Yah. Because Yah is now living in the people. And there will be peace. In that day I shall make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field, not talking about leopards and rhinoceros and centipedes and things of that nature. This is talking about men of war, the birds of the heavens, those who are swift to fly and drop bombs and stuff, the creeping creatures of the ground, right? When bow, sword, battle, I break from the earth. Imagine that. The knowledge that is being spread is fallen knowledge because you got weapons of mass destruction proliferating. Where's the weapons of mass reconstruction? Where's the weapons of righteousness? Where's the weapons of love and truth? That's what those weapons are. We can weaponize truth. We can weaponize love. We can weaponize justice and righteousness. We can weaponize those things and wage war against our enemies, which are those things that stand in opposition to those principles. And how do we do it? This is what Hoshea showed. He literally banged with Satan. He went head up with Satan on 3 instances and overcame the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. But look what he did first. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights. He went into the wilderness to be tried. Let's deal with that. He was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tried by the devil. Huh? Can someone explain that to me? What's going on there? What's going on there?
It's Yahshua being an example of overcoming the test, overcoming your flesh, just of overcoming. He was an example as to how it could, basically a direct example, because we live in the wilderness and we're tempted with these things every day. And so it was just, to me, I look at it as an example. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts what that is saying?
And I agree too. And I'm thinking that it really does parallel what we studied, what we have looked at with Israel being in the wilderness. There was an order about it. And then to me, Yahshua shows this order. He shows that same somewhat of an order because he's not shaken. He has an answer for everything from Yah's word.
Right.
I see, like, as the picture of the, Yah's in the midst of him. He has the order. He's ready for battle. He could do the battle. Like, I saw the 40 days and I said, wow, then they were 40 years. That 40. And that even ties in, I think, too. Yeah.
Right. So notice the timing of this ordeal as well.
Okay.
Go ahead, Iman. Go ahead.
Oh, well, no, I just want to say, and kind of looking at that, that what Yahshua, one of the things that Yahshua was tempted with was the food. And this is the same thing Adam was tempted with, but he failed. He didn't make it.
Right.
But Yahshua, he said, that he wasn't tempted by by the food, you know, because Satan was telling him to turn the stones into to bread, but it was like, you know, showing us that when he tempted Yahshua, he was tempting the man. And I think this is what Yahshua did when he came. He came just like we would be. He came as a man to show us to be able to overcome, how to say no, how to put the devil back in his place. Because if we don't use, and he didn't, use his own words. He used the words of Yah. And that's just me thinking that, that it was the man that was tempted. And as a man, as a people, we get tempted all the time. And hopefully that when we are tempted of evil and tempted of acting of terrible ways, the more that we know of Yah, that we can be overcomers too, because that's going to be the ultimate. We've got to be overcome. We got to prepare ourselves to be a bride. You can't be a bride with a dirty dress, you know. So that's kind of how I kind of think about it.
All right. So, thank you for your patience. I didn't get to hear fully what you said, Iman, but I know it was on point. But I was just going to say the spirit leading Mashiyach in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights to be tried by the devil was training. This was before he launched his ministry. This was right before he launched his ministry. But many times our wilderness experience is to train us and equip us with the necessary tools to go into the world and fulfill our service. And so many of the life lessons that we've learned leading up to our present have been training experiences, has been boot camp for us. We've gone through spiritual boot camp to get to a place where we've overcome our infirmities, where we've overcome the world through our faith by not relying and choosing the lust of our flesh, the lust of our eyes, and the pride of our life. This is what Yahushua overcame. And we have to do this daily. We have to wake up, pledge allegiance to the kingdom of Yah, right? Take on the yoke of the kingdom. We talked about that, how the Shema is the yoke of our kingdom. And so when this comes out of our mouth, our hearts are connected to it. That's why Yahushua told the Pharisees and even Isaiah that you all serve me with the mouth, but your hearts are far from me. We have to make sure the minds and the hearts of us, of our life, is loyal in faith to Yah, in his Mashiyach. That's what connects us to the kingdom. That's what allows us to receive these orders, these commandments even, and to walk in spirit and truth with Yah and carry out his business and be representatives in his business selflessly. Selflessly. Get out of your way. Michael, get out of your way. Mikhail, get out of your way. Let Yah rise and his enemies scatter. Let Yah increase and let me decrease. And that's how the marriage of heaven and earth takes place. Therein lies the mystery of the heavens and the earth. Negating yourself, your opinion, your will, for the presence of Yah to come in to establish his mind and his will in your life. That's why, again, it says, so is my word that goes forth from my mouth. It does not return to me empty, but shall do what I please and accomplish what I sent it for. And that's how heaven becomes manifest on earth. When the word is made manifest, when the word is made flesh on earth. In each and every one of us. Stay long. Any closing thoughts, comments, questions?
No, I just want to say forgive me for being late. I do apologize.
All good, beloved. Better late than never. You know what I mean? I appreciate it. Anybody else? All right, we will close with the Aleinu and with the Hatzikah or the Kaddish. So the spirit of prayer, hallelujah. Aleinu l'shabeach le'adon hakol la'teit gedula la'yetzir b'reishi. Shalom sanu kegoy harasot. V'lo samanu b'mishpachot hadamah. Shalom sam halkeinu kahim. Ve'gor aleinu kakol hamonam. Ve'anachnu korim u'mishtachoim u'modim lifnei melech melki hamalakim hakadosh baruch hu shehu notei shamayim ve'yesod oretz u'meshov yakra'o b'shamayim ima'al u'shechinat ozo b'gobohai morumim hu Eloheinu einod et malkeinu efes nolato hakatuv v'torato v'yadata hayom v'hashmota ela v'vacha ki Yahu ha'Elohim v'shamayim v'ha'aretz metechat einod. Kenach be lecha ya Eloheinu laraot maharaba teferet uzacha. Lecha de gololin men haaretz v'halalim kerot yechatun. V'taken elam b'melkut shaddai b'kol b'dibasar yikra'u b'shemecha. Leha ponot eliki kodesh yaretz. Yikiru v'yodeu kol yeshvei tabak hilecha tikara kol barek tisha kol ashon. V'necha ya Eloheinu yekera u'v'yifolu l'chavot shemka yakayatanu v'yikabalu cholam et al malchuteka v'temlok et lahil mahara le'olam vayed ki hamelchut shelcha hi u'le'lemi et temlok bakavod kakatuv b'torateka ya yimdok le'olam vayed v'ne'amar v'chaya ya le'meleka kol ha'aretz Yom hahu yihi echad u'shemo echad. So the Hebrew Kaddish, Yikadava Yikadesha, Me'erba, Amen. V'yamadi v'rak yerote v'yimelech malkute. V'chayechun v'yamichun v'kayeda kol Beit Israel. V'galav isman kari v'imiru, Amen. Yehesh me'eraba me'vorak le'olam uzme'amaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yipah v'yirama v'yinaseh Yihadav v'yidalei v'yihalal shemei d'kudesha berichu Ela min kol barachata v'shirata tuspekata v'negmata damiran b'aman v'imiru amen Yehesh lamar b'amei shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Israel v'imiru amen Osei shalom v'yinomar hu yasei shalom aleinu v'yakol Israel b'shem Mashiyach Yehoshua Baruch Hashem hallelujah Hallelujah, hallelujah, v'meru, amen. Yivarechecha Yahuwah, v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Yahuwah panav alecha, v'yihunecha, Yisai Yahuwah panav alecha, v'yisim lecha, shalom, b'shem Mashiach Yahushua, Baruch Hashem, hallelujah, hallelujah, and hallelujah, amen and amen. All right, Mishpacha. So tomorrow for Shavuot, I will be having a presentation, and I'll share this link so you all can actually access it through Zoom as well. It will be at 1:30 tomorrow. So you can jump on if you want and have time to come on to the presentation. It's called The True Words of Elohim. So we're going to be dealing with the letters and the words of Yah,
all the way across.
who we are in relation to that. So feel free. It'll be on Facebook. It'll be on Zoom as well. All right.
Toda.
Bavakasha.
Let's